It's been about 2 weeks since I discovered that my wife, Lisa, cheated on me with her ex. According to her, she felt insecure because of my ex, Jenny. It's the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard in my life. But the worst part is that everyone seems to agree with her, and they're pressuring me to forgive her. I want to hear the opinion of people who aren't involved. I'll try to give some background. It might be a bit long. Jenny and I go way back. We met when we were both 3 years old. Her mom was a nanny who took care of several kids, including me. We were so inseparable that our mothers became friends and decided to put us in the same school. I spent practically my entire childhood with Jenny until I was 13. We were known as the Siamese twins back then. We argued a lot, but we always stuck together, which made other kids ostracize us. But we didn't care as long as we had each other. When we were 11, our family started thinking it wasn't healthy for us to be so close, that we needed to make other friends. In trying to separate us, we realized we were deeply in love with each other. But our families were very conservative. She's of Arab origin, and I'm of African origin, so we hid our relationship. One night when I was 13, I made the mistake of sneaking into her room on the first floor through her window. It was dangerous, but thrilling. I'd done it a few times before. We just chatted and kissed, nothing more. But that night, her father walked in on us. He caught us kissing and tried to call the police. I tried to escape through the window, fell, and broke my arm. The whole neighborhood was out, and it turned into a scandal. Her father never liked me and wanted to press charges. Even though I wasn't at risk of much at that age, it was still very humiliating for my family. My dad decided to send me to Africa to stay indefinitely, mainly to separate us. I tried to adapt to my new life, and she tried to adapt to hers, but we managed to keep in touch online. When I came back to France after high school, it was like we had never been apart. We continued dating in secret, and by the time we were 20, it was clear to us that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. We were naive to think it would be that simple. We decided to tell our families that we intended to get married. But to them, it was like we had announced the apocalypse. They wanted us to marry within our own cultures, and it caused a lot of tension in the neighborhood. We were already the talk of the town, and everyone had an opinion on our lives. It was very painful. We tried to hold on for a year. She wanted us to move far away from Paris and our families to finish our studies, but my father was sick, so I decided to stay. When my father died, I no longer had the strength to fight. I decided to break up with her, and she moved to another city. We lost contact completely. I was tired of living in the neighborhood where people always talked about us. I moved to a student residence at my university. It was a terrible year. I visited my family on weekends, and one day at a wedding, I met Lisa. She had just moved to the neighborhood with her family. We were seated at the same table and spent the evening joking and sharing our stories. I told her about Jenny, and she told me about her ex. She left her ex after 2 years because she didn't want to sleep with him before marriage, but he couldn't wait. She told him to marry her, but he wasn't ready, so she ended it. We were two souls in pain. Over time, we became friends and started hanging out together, but I realized she got more irritated whenever I mentioned Jenny, so I stopped talking about her. One day, Lisa confessed she had feelings for me. I told her that Jenny was still in my heart, but she said this was an opportunity to forget her, so I agreed to date Lisa. At first, it was weird being with another woman, but eventually I got used to it and started to like Lisa. As time went by, she became more and more jealous of Jenny, even though I never mentioned her again after Lisa confessed her feelings for me. It was strange how Lisa acted. I lived on campus, so I didn't know what was being said in the neighborhood I came from. But apparently people were talking about my past with Jenny, sharing stories like the time I broke my arm trying to escape through her window, and other anecdotes. I reassured Lisa that those days were behind me, but she always compared herself to Jenny. It's true, Jenny was stunning, but that was beyond my control. Lisa blamed me for having dated such a beautiful woman, even though she never actually saw her in person. Maybe in a photo, I don't know. I always told Lisa she was the most beautiful to me because she was the one who mattered now, but she constantly compared herself to Jenny. If we did activities together, she'd ask if I had done them with Jenny. What bothered her the most was that I had been intimate with Jenny. It was becoming unbearable. Despite everything, I asked Lisa to marry me. She was from the same culture as me, which pleased my family, and I didn't have the strength to fight for love again. The wedding was scheduled for August, which was perfect timing because I would finish my studies in July. Other than her insecurity, everything seemed fine until 2 weeks ago when I got a call from an unknown number. The guy introduced himself as Lisa's ex and claimed they were still seeing each other and had slept together several times. I didn't believe him at first. I thought he was trying to sabotage our relationship, but then he sent me screenshots of their conversations. I told him those could be easily fabricated, so he asked me to meet him. I wanted to warn Lisa, but I decided to meet the guy first. I brought 2 friends with me in case it was a trick. He showed me his phone with Lisa's number, their conversations, and other details. They had been seeing each other for 2 months, and Lisa had ended their affair a week before he contacted me. I called Lisa and told her we needed to talk. Strangely, I felt no anger, no positive or negative emotions. I was like a spectator watching my life unfold in a film. A friend suggested I record our confrontation, so I did. When I told Lisa what I knew, she was shocked and claimed it wasn't true, that the guy was trying to destroy our relationship. I showed her the screenshots, and she repeated what I had said to the guy, that they could be easily fabricated. I told her I met the guy, and he showed me his phone with details about our lives that he couldn't have known. That's when she broke down, started crying, and begged for forgiveness. I was at her house in her room when her family came to see what was happening. I explained the situation, but they didn't believe me. I didn't try to convince them. I just left. They contacted my family before I arrived home. I explained everything to my mother, but apparently, Lisa had told them that she did it because she thought I was secretly seeing Jenny, who, as it turned out, had come back to town without me knowing. Now, everyone says it's because of Jenny. Lisa made herself the victim and painted Jenny and me as the villains. I was so furious that I cut off contact with everyone. It's been 10 days since I've spoken to anyone in the neighborhood. I've been staying with a friend from school, so no one knows where I am. I turned off my phone and only contact my mother through email. I also receive a ton of emails from Lisa, but I delete each one without reading it. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Everyone is asking me to forgive her, but that's impossible for me. I only feel disgust toward her, but I don't know what to do or how to handle this situation. It's complicated. Any advice? Update. People have been asking for an update, so here it is. D-Day was very close to my finals, so it was like I was numb and felt like I was on autopilot throughout my exams. Nothing else mattered during that period. And honestly, focusing on myself was all I needed. Now, I'm officially an engineer. I remained in no contact with Lisa, her family, my family, or anyone who minded my business. But in the evening after my exams, when I finally got back to my apartment, everything came back like a big wave crashing over me. I was tired and felt abandoned by everyone. I was very anxious about the messages I would receive when I turned on my phone, so I didn't. I just wanted to sleep. I read that most people have mental images of their significant other with their affair partner. Oddly, my mind fixated on me with Lisa. I pictured the times we cuddled, made out, and more, and I felt dirty. I kept scratching myself, then took a shower to clean myself from the feeling of being dirty. I did that twice that evening. I had trouble falling asleep in my bed, scratching again because it reminded me of all the times Lisa and I slept there. So I lay down on the floor. The next day, every time the images became too much to handle, I started scratching again and went to shower to feel clean. I did that 8 times. Right now, I do it 3 to 4 times a day. I'm afraid I'll damage my skin. Has this ever happened to any of you? I hope it's not a compulsive mental illness. The next day, I turned on my phone. The messages kept pouring in, over 200 texts and many voicemails. I didn't read any of them. I deleted everything. I didn't have the strength to go through the same crap with people telling me the same things over and over. I decided to go to my family house. I couldn't keep hiding any longer. I knew I'd find people there, like every Saturday. I've never been so stressed in my life. When I got home, I found my uncle, my father's brother and self-proclaimed head of the family after my father passed away, his wife, whom I called the witch because, well, she is a witch, their children, a few family friends, and my siblings. For some reason, my mother wasn't there. As soon as I arrived, my uncle started yelling at me. I didn't even acknowledge him. Seeing my little sister run to me for a hug was a blessing. God, I love this little girl. All my siblings see me as a role model. I felt guilty for not talking to them all this time. Usually when I'm there on weekends, I help with their homework, put the youngest ones to bed, and tell them stories my father used to tell me. And when I'm in my own apartment, we talk every night to see how their day was. We're very close, but my uncle wouldn't stop yelling at me, so I got pissed off. I was sitting in front of everyone like I was being judged by a jury, lol. The witch asked if I had regained my sanity. Apparently Lisa changed her story. She claimed she didn't sleep with her affair partner. They just kissed. She said I put so much pressure on her that she confessed to something she didn't do. But I know what I saw on her affair partner's phone. This girl Lisa, I don't even know who she is anymore. She turned out to be such a manipulative person. How can someone hide such a vicious nature for so long? Or am I such a fool for not noticing anything? Before we started dating, she told me lying was a deal breaker and that she hated narcissistic perverts. Well, she embodies everything she hates. It's beyond my understanding. At that point, I didn't care anymore. I told everyone what I had been through, and they had the choice to believe either me, whom they've known my whole life, or someone they've known a little over a year. The witch insisted it was impossible because Lisa is a sweet and loving girl who helps the community and volunteers. I told her that was irrelevant because even Hitler volunteered at some point in his life. My uncle said if it was true that Lisa slept with her affair partner, I had the right to end the relationship, as if I needed permission to decide my relationships. But when the witch said it didn't matter if it was true because it would just be a mistake made by a young person, my uncle immediately agreed with her. He's the biggest fool I know. He may have an opinion, but as soon as his wife says otherwise, he changes his mind. I wouldn't be surprised if his wife cheated on him and he knew it. He's a real doormat. Maybe he's literally afraid of his wife. She's much bigger than him. If you saw them walking hand in hand at night, you'd think of a lady walking with her child. Then the witch tells me to admit it was because of Jenny. I stayed calm and replied that I hadn't heard from Jenny for 2 years. My uncle told me if it wasn't because of Jenny, I could easily forgive Lisa. I couldn't take it anymore. I told him, okay, I'll forgive Lisa if you let me sleep with the witch for 2 months. Chaos erupted. My uncle wanted to hit me, but family friends held him back. I told them they were hypocrites, asking me to forgive what they couldn't even imagine forgiving. I then declared no one was allowed to interfere in my life anymore. The witch was crying, and my uncle said he would never forgive me, and that I was dead to them. At that moment, I didn't care. I went up to my room because I still have a room there. I felt some regret, because they were still my family. I admit that I started having doubts about the reliability of what Lisa's affair partner showed me, and for a short time, I wondered if I could forgive her if it was just a kiss. Well, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't. Never. When I was little, and my parents couldn't pick me up after school because of their work, our neighbor took care of me because he also had 2 children in the same school. I stayed at his place until the evening. He took good care of me, treated me like his own child. He gave me little candies and presents, and I loved him very much. He was a great man in everyone's eyes. But one day, this kind, helpful man committed suicide because his wife had an affair. This is what cheating can do. A year later, I heard his wife moved to Canada with their kids and her affair partner. Maybe my hatred of cheating stems from that event. So, I won't burn myself out trying to give warmth to others by getting back with Lisa, even though, honestly, I don't understand why people are trying so hard to get me back with her and how it would benefit them. Anyway, my mother came back. I guess they told her what happened. She came into my room and the first thing she did was hug me, asking about my feelings and my finals. She is such a lovely human being, even though she mostly communicates her love through actions rather than words. I remember a few years ago when I used to work in fast food while studying. I often came home around 2 a.m., and she was there waiting for me. We had small talks while I ate the dinner she reheated for me. We had a hard time not waking everybody up with our laughter, so we talked about what happened with my uncle and his wife, and I gave her the full story of why I had to break up with Lisa. In my last post, I didn't mention that I only told my mother that Lisa cheated on me, but not to what extent. So, she believed, like everyone else, that it was just a kiss. She was sorry for what I was going through, but what surprised me the most was that she was crying. It was the first time in my life I saw my mom cry. Even when my father passed away, she was still smiling and trying to be the support system we needed, only crying at night in her room when she thought everyone was sleeping. Seeing her cry broke me, and I couldn't stop myself from crying too. In that moment, as she hugged me, I felt a bunch of emotions like sadness, anger, and hatred. I felt the hurt deeply. She told me she would accept any decision I made. My mom went back downstairs and everyone left. I didn't ask what she told them because I didn't care that much. I turned off my phone again for the next week because I was too tired. I spent most of that time sleeping, catching up with my siblings, gaming with them, and trying to deal with the pain I was feeling. My mother received several calls from Lisa's parents, and she only told me once she felt I was in a good place to talk about it. Apparently, Lisa was having a bad time. She spent some time in the hospital and was going insane because I went no contact. Lisa's parents begged my mom to have me meet with them just once. Even though she told me I didn't have to, I agreed to meet them, with Lisa next Saturday. Lisa had controlled the narrative all this time, so it's my turn to do so. I don't know how it's going to be, and if I should have them come to my house or go to theirs, but I will be ready. In my last post, someone suggested calling her AP and pretending I might give her a second chance if I didn't have enough proof. Well, that's what I did yesterday, and I will see him tomorrow, Sunday. He said there's far more to the story than I know. He won't send me proof because I might show it to Lisa, and he then won't have a shot to win her back. But he will show and tell me everything. We will see. Oh yes, people keep asking how things are going between me and Jenny. In my last post, I said I would contact her to apologize for her name being associated with this mess, even if it's not my fault. Well, before I could do that, she contacted me by email. It's not what you think, LOL. She was super mad and didn't understand why people keep telling her she messed up my relationship. But at least she was kind enough to ask if I was okay with all this mess. I saw the message 2 days ago and haven't responded yet. I don't even know what to write. I feel like a brainless odd guy right now. But I will do it between the meeting with Lisa's AP and her family. I will update you guys. Thank y'all. Update 2. So I met with Lisa's affair partner, AP, yesterday. I'm too tired to give all the details because the situation is becoming really heavy. We met in the same place as the first time, and of course, I recorded everything. Long story short, they dated for 4 years on and off, and Lisa was never the virgin she claimed to be, nor was he the first man she slept with. He was, and still is, crazy about her, even though Lisa cheated twice. He was willing to work through it each time. But somehow Lisa got pregnant and didn't know who the father was. Still, he was willing to accept the baby as his own and didn't want to do a paternity test. Lisa's parents learned about the pregnancy and wanted her to abort. He says that due to the stress, she eventually had a miscarriage. She was too depressed, and her family decided to relocate to start fresh. He says that's when Lisa began to develop the idea of being a born-again virgin, whatever that means. According to him, she felt like her miscarriage was a punishment for the way she used to live her life. She broke up with him and they decided to stay friends. So far, he didn't show me any proof. He says he changed his phone in the meantime. But he showed me discussions they had during the whole period that I knew Lisa. In the texts, Lisa said she met someone, me, who had the kind of old romantic relationship she always wanted to experience. Over time, she said I was a good guy and she could build something with me. Throughout our relationship, AP became someone she confided in when she was insecure. So he knows practically everything about our relationship, telling me details only Lisa and I knew. He says Lisa didn't like me at first. She liked the idea that I was capable of having an amazing relationship in the past, and she wanted the same. He thinks Lisa still doesn't love me. She just loves the idea of having me completely, and she never felt that she had me completely, so it became an obsession. Well, I don't know if the first part of his story is true or not, but I know that everything he's told me since I've known Lisa is corroborated by evidence. I'm getting angrier and angrier, and it's a feeling I'm not comfortable with. I don't want to meet Lisa's family, but I don't know if it's true that they knew from the start what their daughter was. What is certain is that now I no longer want to meet Lisa. I have this huge need to take all the evidence and send it to everyone I know because it is unfair that I, who was born and raised in my neighborhood, must bear the consequences of her actions. But at the same time, I don't want to do things like that. I have a lot of respect for Lisa's parents. I should just send them my evidence and ask them for explanations before deciding whether or not I will meet them. I'm losing my mind right now while many of you have lived for years with spouses who cheated on you, and some even have children with them. Update 3. Meeting with my cheating ex-fiancée and her family. So to the question, Did I meet Lisa and her family? Yes, I met them. I met them at my house with my mom. Before the meeting, I had sent a long audio message to Lisa's parents, telling them everything I learned from her AP and saying I was tired of her playing the victim and painting me as the villain. There was nothing left to be saved in the relationship, but if the rumors kept going, I was willing to expose Lisa in our social circle because it was unfair for me to suffer from something I did not do. I told them I would cancel the meeting unless she came clean. Immediately, Lisa's mother called me and said Lisa had finally told them everything, removed her posts, and came clean on all her social networks. I don't use Snapchat or Instagram, so I couldn't verify if it was true. I had to call one of our mutual friends to check, and yes, she had come clean. I felt trapped in my own game because, given how important it is to save appearances in a traditional family like Lisa's, I thought she would never do that. So I maintained the meeting. I thought it would be difficult to meet Lisa since every time I thought back to our moments, I saw myself scratching a lot. I thought seeing her would be too much, but in the end, it wasn't. When we met, I almost didn't recognize her. She had lost weight in such a short time. She looked very sad and lost. She couldn't make eye contact with me and didn't even talk to me. We were in our living room making small talk at the beginning until her mother started to beg me to take her back, saying she was very insecure, which is why she did what she did. I had already prepared what I wanted to say and the questions I had, so I did not deviate from that. I first asked Lisa why she lied about her past and pretended to be someone she wasn't. She started crying and wouldn't look at me. Her mother said she was always judged on her past and asked me if, knowing the truth, I would still date her. I told her that the answers to the ifs weren't important at that point. It just led to imaginary paths. The only path that mattered was the one where Lisa chose to lie about her past, and that brought us to where we are. It was the only reality, and in that reality, I've been in a relationship all this time with someone who didn't exist, who lied to me, and who I'll never know what's true in anything she ever said to me. In short, her parents kept defending her, but Lisa still wouldn't speak. The discussion went around in circles, and at some point, seeing how determined I was, they asked me, for the sake of the love I ever had for their daughter, to postpone the wedding and take the summer to think about everything. I didn't expect that request. It confused me. I didn't know what to say. My mother, who had been silent from the start, saw that I was struggling to answer. She said she had already spoken with me, and I had already made up my mind. If in the future I changed my mind, she would advise me not to, but would still support my choice. She said the meeting was to give them closure, not to consider a reconciliation. She told them I was traumatized, lacked sleep, and had been acting weird since then. About me scratching myself, LOL. Nobody spoke for a while. Then Lisa asked to speak to me in private. She insisted it was not to convince me, but to accept my decision if I gave her a one-on-one. I told her I didn't think it was a good idea to be in a room alone, but we could go outside to walk, and that's what we did. We walked for about half an hour. It was the first time I saw her so vulnerable, and where she finally took accountability for her actions. She told me it was true that she had a promiscuous past. She never had any trauma to explain it. She grew up in a loving family. It was probably just her nature, but she started having sex at 12. At 15, she used to have different partners at the same time. By 18, she had already slept with 40 people and had stopped counting after that. She told me she had never known love before me. She just looked to sex as a way to be loved and to seek validation. She was loved by AP, and she never knew a man could love her the way AP did. She thought that was what she was looking for, but ultimately, she couldn't love AP the same way. She couldn't stop sleeping with other guys, because the only time she thought she could love was when she got intimate with someone. But after that, the feeling disappeared, and only a sense of emptiness remained. She eventually got pregnant and started loving her unborn child, but had a miscarriage. That's when she started questioning her whole life. Her family moved away so she could start over. She broke up with AP because she didn't love him, but he was a good person, and she valued their friendship, so they never stopped communicating. Even before meeting me, she had heard of me and Jenny. The first time was at a fast food place where Jenny and I used to eat. We were friends with the owner's son, who knew us too and used to offer us kebabs. He always took pictures of his loyal customers and put them on the walls of his restaurant. Among the photos were two with me and Jenny, one when we were 11 and another when we were 19. Everyone in the neighborhood knew the story behind the 19-year-old picture. It was my birthday. I was born in September, so Jenny had worked all summer to give me a dream birthday. She bought me a tuxedo, and she wore a nice evening dress. She rented a limo, which was waiting for me in front of my house. She promised me a dream evening. We got into the limo, but 200 meters later, it stopped. She said we had arrived at our destination, but we got off in front of the modest fast food place. I was too embarrassed to be in a suit, have a limo ride, and end up at a fast food joint. She had that kind of humor. But it was cool. We ordered the same kebabs the owner used to offer us, and she bought a muffin, put a candle on it, lit it, and asked me to blow it out. The owner took a picture of that moment and liked to tell the prank Jenny had played on me, even though she did give me the greatest birthday after that. But that's another story. So when Lisa found out about the story, she asked for more. People told her other stuff here and there, and that's when she said she wanted to experience this kind of love. When she met me and knew I was the guy in the picture, she wanted to know me. She was intimidated by the stories she heard about me, and before she knew it, she had started lying to hide her past. When she realized she was already attached to me, she couldn't take those lies back, because if she told me the truth, I would never want to see her again. She felt guilty throughout our relationship. She discovered she was in love with me. It was the first time she felt love without having to sleep with someone. The only reason, other than her lies, that she couldn't sleep with me was that she was scared her love would vanish after that. Our relationship meant everything to her, but she thought the lies she told meant we had no future if I found out. She felt unworthy of me, and that fed her insecurity about losing me. She hated herself so much that she sabotaged the relationship, and one of her behaviors was going back to her demons and cheating on me with AP. Reality hit her hard when I found out the truth, and that's when she lost herself. She didn't know she could turn into a monster to try to keep me in her life. She made up excuses and tried to guilt me into staying with her. When she realized it wasn't going to work, she passed out and spent time in the hospital. She didn't want to live anymore, not because she lost me, but because she realized what she had become, and it was unbearable. She says she doesn't want to force me to be with her anymore. Even if I forgive her, she would never forgive herself. She started going to therapy to find out why she did what she did and who she really was. She says it might be a long process, but if I could find compassion in my heart to forgive her and help her become a better person, she would be grateful to me for life. I wasn't going to, but at that moment, I was so weak when I heard her request that I almost agreed to keep in touch to help her. I had so much empathy for this woman who hurt me. It was crazy. But I knew from the moment I saw her that the feelings I had for her no longer existed. I explained to her that I needed to distance myself to heal, and that she didn't need me to heal. She thinks she needs me, but to heal, she has to face things herself, and that's the only way she can grow out of it. She says she already knew what I was going to say, but if she didn't try, she would have regrets all her life. She told me she accepts my decision, but is not giving up on me, and will seek to become the best version of herself. She believes we will reunite in the future. I wanted to tell her that I could never be with someone who cheated on me or who has cheated before, but I kept quiet. I just said that I had moved on and that it wasn't good for her if I gave her hope. She said nothing, and we ended up talking about something else. Her parents contacted her and told her they were already home, so I walked her to her house. Before going, I told her I would be no contact. It was the only healthy way to heal. She agreed, but that will be so hard because we live in the same neighborhood and might run into each other from time to time. She asked for a last hug, and I hugged her. I left, and frankly, I felt lighter after this talk. I had no more anger, and I still have no anger in me. Maybe it will come back in the future. As I've been told, healing is not linear. That's basically the meeting. So to the question, did I meet Jenny? Yes, I met Jenny twice, but I'm not sure this is the right sub to talk about it. Maybe I'll do a final update before going on my summer vacation for anyone interested to find out what happened and where I'm going from here. Update. I'm about to make some decisions that can change the rest of my life. Well, since I met Jenny, I'm about to make decisions that could change my whole life, and I'm full of doubts right now. The first meeting. I already knew that Jenny was back in town, and it was only a matter of time before we ran into each other. And we did, In a supermarket, I was with my siblings, and she was with her mom. For the record, I was, and still am, very close to her mother. I always saw her as a second mom because she took care of me when I was little. We never lost contact and call each other once a month. Jenny also kept in touch with my mom. So unlike our fathers, our mothers never had issues with us being together. Jenny's dad has always been endogamous, believing that marrying people within the same ethnicity was the only way to keep the culture alive. My father, on the other hand, was very proud of his origins. At first, he wasn't against us, but when he heard one day that Jenny's father had insulted me in public when he caught us holding hands in the street, my dad didn't want us to be together anymore. He said black people have suffered greatly from racism and humiliation throughout history, and trying to convince people to accept us because we are black is like giving a reason to those who hate us and invalidating the fight of all the people who fought for our rights. From there, other members of each family got involved, and we felt like our relationship no longer belonged to us. Despite everything, I always had support from Jenny's mom, and she had support from mine. When we broke up, I didn't want our mothers to update me about Jenny's life as it was too painful. They respected that. I knew Jenny was still speaking to my mom, but I never minded their business. That day in the supermarket, I couldn't help staring at her. She was even more beautiful than I remembered. It was crazy. 2 years without seeing each other, and here we were. I didn't know what to say, so I focused on her mom. This traitor, LOL, made fun of the situation and left us alone, because we had things to talk about. She quietly continued her shopping, taking my brothers with her so Jenny and I could talk. I can't tell you exactly what we said to each other, because I was so nervous that I was on the verge of fainting. In the end, we didn't say anything interesting. We exchanged numbers so we could talk later. The next day, I called her, and we decided to meet at a restaurant in 3 days. Before the meeting, we ended up talking on the phone for hours each day. Basically, she explained to me what she had been doing for the past 2 years. She just graduated and will start a job in September that allows her to work from home or anywhere. It also gives her time to follow manga workshops. She has always been very good at drawing and storytelling and has always wanted to write her own manga, but never had the courage to try. Now she's willing to make the step, but wanted to first secure a diploma and a job. She talked about her ambitions and projects, and honestly, in 2 years, this girl has evolved more than I could have imagined. In the end, it wasn't even a surprise because she always knew what she wanted and how to get there. I, on the other hand, was the shame of the neighborhood. Every time I saw faces when I went out, I wondered if they were talking about me and my failure with Lisa, if they were making fun of me for being such a stupid blind idiot, for not even knowing the person I was about to spend the rest of my life with. The second meeting. When we met the second time, it was obvious that my feelings for her never stopped existing. I love her, always have, always will, and I feel like there is nothing I can do to change that. I mean, I loved her since I was a child. I grew up. I'm not the same person anymore. My values evolved, my principles too, but the only thing that never changed is the love I have for her. I missed her, I missed our talks, I missed my best friend, and I missed the love of my life. It took me seeing her twice and a few conversations on the phone to realize that. God damn, I'm pathetic. I thought I knew everything about myself, about my needs, my wants, and the life I was about to build with Lisa. And I wonder what would have happened if Lisa had done nothing wrong to me and I had met Jenny. Would I have embodied what I hate most in the world by breaking Lisa's heart or cheating on her? I don't know. I'm weaker than I thought. My principles may be less solid than I believed. I remember the words of an old man. He told me that we were all deceivers. Some already know it, and others don't know it yet. We were all ticking time bombs that would go off when all the parameters came together. It didn't take much to become everything we've always hated. I told him it was his way of rationalizing who he was, but maybe he was right. Maybe Jenny could be a cheater too if the parameters came together. She was the only person I could blindly say would never do that. She has such a high degree of integrity and principle that I hate myself for thinking she could do something like that. But I am no longer sure how much a flower could hide a snake behind. So when I asked Jenny about her dating stories in the last 2 years, she told me she had never been with anyone. I had a hard time believing her. I mean, she is such a beautiful girl, intelligent, confident, loving, generous, with a sense of humor that makes you never get bored with her. I told her it wasn't true, that we weren't together, and that she didn't have to try to spare me. She was a little confused about my reaction at first. Then she smiled, telling me that given what I went through, she understood that I could make some projections and doubt everything, but I have to work on it ASAP before it becomes a big issue in my life. She said I should leave the neighborhood and go on vacation to clear my mind. I told her I did not want to go on vacation alone. My siblings were supposed to go to Senegal while I was on my honeymoon, and I did not see myself going there with them. Senegal is a country with an incredible sense of hospitality, where you are surrounded by people all the time, and that was not what I needed. She asked me to go on vacation with her because we had a lot to talk about, and without hesitation, I said, okay. It's crazy. We haven't seen or talked to each other for 2 years, and now we were planning a vacation together. The vacation. When I announced this to my mom, she was very worried, but strangely not for me. She told me not to break Jenny's heart and to behave honorably, like no sex before marriage, lol. We decided to go to one of the center parks, holiday villages in Europe, in France. We rented a cottage with 2 bedrooms. It was an incredible place to be. There was nature, old castles, farms, clean air, and a lot of activities to do. On the first evening, I wanted to talk about what happened 2 years ago, the pain I caused her, and how things have been for her. But she told me it was not about her. She had made the trip to be a support system. She said I was already KO, and she did not want to add more LOL, but she promised we would talk about it at the end of our stay. So I didn't push and tried to enjoy our vacation, and it was one of the best I ever had. We laughed like children. We played. We cycled for miles every day. It was the perfect place to be. When one of us felt the other needed space, we just hung out alone or stayed together without talking. That was very great. It's like we had never been apart. Finally, we discussed our breakup on the last day we were due to go home. She asked me if I was getting better and if I still wanted to have this discussion because it wouldn't be pleasant. I told her that I was ready. My God, I was not ready. She started by telling me how she felt when we broke up. She asked how it was possible for me to abandon her just like that after so many years of building the best relationship we could have. How could I have been so stupid, such an asshole, to abandon her when she was fighting for us, and she had turned her back on her whole family for me, for us, because she always knew that I was the one? She never doubted us, herself, or me. She was ready to make great sacrifices to build the life we always wanted, the careers, the family, the trips, the projects. How could I have let her down like that? At that moment, she was crying, so angry that she was shaking. She told me when she left, she promised herself that she would never be in a relationship again, because if I could do that to her, after so many years of building what we had and the struggles we went through, anyone else could do it too. She didn't want to go through such pain again and give someone else the opportunity to hurt her like this. She found an escape in her studies and at the library. Then she learned that I was with Lisa a year after our breakup. She thought, when we've known each other since childhood and had the relationship we had, 1 year wasn't enough to move on. She said to herself that I was not the person she thought she knew. She was tired of being a prisoner of her love for me when there were a lot of guys who were interested in her, and she didn't even consider flirting with anyone. She never wanted anyone's attention and never sought validation from anyone else. She came to the conclusion that she was not normal and that something had to change. So she started talking with a guy, then went to a restaurant, then to the cinema. On their 3rd meeting, the guy took her hand, and she was so uncomfortable that she thought she would faint. She just had an urge to vomit. She felt like she was cheating on me. It's crazy. I was with another woman. We broke up, and still she couldn't even hold someone else's hand. She understood that she needed help, so she began to see a therapist for several months. She decided to focus on things she could control, like her academic success, her career, and her life choices. As for me, she hated me deep down, especially when she knew I was going to get married. She came back to see her family after her finals because she hadn't seen them for 2 years. She rarely spoke to her father and wanted to fix their relationship as she figured I wasn't worth the fights she had with her dad. When she heard Lisa had cheated on me, her first reaction was to say that it was karma. But she was worried about me. She knew how abject infidelity was to me. When she saw me, she was still angry, but realized that the hate didn't exist, that she never hated me. and it drove her crazy to feel so weak in front of me when she had always made logical decisions in her life. She was independent and knew how to find what she wanted in her life on her own. She realized that she loved me and that love never went away and probably never will. It didn't make sense to her. But even if she loves me so much, she wouldn't want to be with me. She didn't want to be with someone who would leave her at the slightest difficulty. She didn't want to relive what she had been through. She came to the conclusion I wasn't a reliable person, and she didn't want to be in a relationship where she would always have the fear of being abandoned. Despite everything, she came to cry in my arms and said to me, "You see, I keep doing irrational things and it kills me." I didn't speak. I listened to her throughout and didn't try to justify myself. I told her there was an explanation for all of this, but if I did it right now, it would be like I was not listening and invalidating how she felt. Finally, I told Jenny that I would have never gone with her after my father died because it was my responsibility to take care of my siblings and not leave my mother alone with 3 children. But I should never have broken up with her. I should have let her go and proposed a long-distance relationship, LDR, as we had already been there in the past. I told her that I didn't know what my word was worth to her, but I sincerely meant it, and I apologized for not making the right decision and hurting her in this way. I probably didn't deserve a second chance with her because I was realizing that I wasn't the strong, confident person I thought I was, but I missed her. I missed what we had, and I apologized. She also apologized for putting me in a position of deciding whether to come with her or stay with my family, saying she had been selfish for only considering her pain and not considering the responsibilities I had. The discussion lasted for more than 3 hours. It was heavy, but we needed it. Weirdly, she told me that not wanting a relationship right away, not trying to justify my choices, and feeling lost made her realize that I've gained a lot in maturity. She said I used to always feel the need to think I had to be perfect, that I always had to make the right decisions and lead by example. My dilemmas. If there's one thing I'm sure of right now, it's that I'll love this girl all my life. That's the only thing I'm sure of. The rest is a mess. First dilemma. 3 months ago, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to pass the last school exams of my whole life, become an information systems engineer, get married, go on a honeymoon, and start working in October at the company, where I had been doing my internship for more than 6 months, which had offered me a contract with a very good salary. Everything was planned. But then, everything changed. I always thought I was going to do a PhD after engineering school because that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to do research. But when I decided to marry Lisa, I thought it was better to work directly after graduating because she would still have a year of study left, and I had to be the breadwinner. Now I don't really know if I should pursue my original plan or if it's too late to find a thesis subject. Second dilemma. If we have to start over again, Jenny will never want to live in the neighborhood. Our last year together exhausted her mentally and physically. She never wants to go through such trauma again. The problem is that I can't leave Paris even if I wanted to. I can't abandon my siblings when they are so little. I have to guide them, watch over them as I promised my father. It's hard growing up in this neighborhood, and besides, I can't leave my mother to fend for herself. I will guide them until the first goes to university and the last goes to middle school. There is something Jenny said to me that bothers me a lot. She said I needed my siblings more than they needed me, and I was trying to convince myself that they are dependent on me so I can feed my own dependency on them. She said I was not their father and that I had to stop trying to replace my dad. It's something that's hard to hear, but she's the type to tell unpleasant truths. Third dilemma. I don't know if it's a good idea to be so close to Jenny when I have so many doubts myself. Even if we both admitted that we loved each other, I'm not in the best condition to start a romantic relationship again, and I'm afraid of hurting her because it's too soon. We both want to start by being friends, but the sexual tension between us during those holidays was so intense that I had to meditate every morning to not make a move on her. I'm not the best version of myself right now, but on the other hand, I don't want to push her away and miss this chance because I know there won't be another one. So I don't know where to go from here. Next step. She advised me to do individual therapy for myself. I accepted, and have already made appointments in September for online sessions until I get used to the therapist. She also offered to do therapy with her, because even if we choose to stay friends, we have to learn to trust each other again and to heal. I agree with that. For now, we have decided to travel around France in a motorhome during the month of September. She can work while we're on the road, and I can reflect on myself while looking for a thesis director. I could also take this opportunity to see what my siblings are doing without me helping them with everything. It will be an exciting adventure that we can afford financially. Here is where I am, with a lot of decisions to make. Last update. A 1-year update from D-Day. Hi friends. It's been a while. Lately I've had some time to rest, and I thought I'd take the time to give an update. Without further delay, here's what my life has become since my last post. Me. I'm doing very well. Over the past year, I've been going to the gym several times a week. What initially started as a way to cope with infidelity has become a hobby. I was considering pursuing a doctorate, but I've decided to work instead. I can always pursue it in 2 or 3 years when my siblings are more independent. I've been in therapy for a year. Originally, I was supposed to attend therapy to deal with Lisa's infidelity, but I stayed for various reasons. I'm improving steadily, and the chapter with Lisa is behind me. Oh yes, I'll soon be marrying Jenny. Jenny, she's doing very well. She's the best thing that's happened to me in my life, and I now believe that things happen for a reason. Just like me, she was in therapy. We also underwent couples therapy for 4 months. Goodness, facing so much resentment and unspoken feelings was uncomfortable and heavy, but ultimately, it was the best thing for us. Our therapist told us that we didn't need him anymore and genuinely believed we would be good. However, Jenny and I decided to have a session every 2 to 3 months. She's very ambitious, works a lot, and plans to start her own business. It's crazy to think that we'll be getting married so young, right at the beginning of our careers. I know it's crazy. Barely a year ago, I was going to marry Lisa before discovering she was cheating on me. And now, a year later, I'm about to get married. It's crazy, I know. But there are reasons for it. The first reason is that she's the right person. I've known her as long as I've known myself, and sometimes I feel like I know her better than I know myself, even though I understand it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Both she and I can change according to life's circumstances, and there's no guarantee. I've read so many stories of people who thought they knew their partners for 20 years, and one day, they discovered they were deceived. I'm not naive enough to believe that knowing someone and loving them is enough. Families. My family is doing well. I no longer live with them, but I go back to the neighborhood several times a week. I'm no longer in touch with the rest of the family, only my mother and siblings. It's a shame, but that's how it is. Moreover, family is the second reason for this marriage. Between our families, there was a lot of love, until they discovered a few years ago that Jenny and I were in love. This was followed by a lot of drama. It drove our families apart. Jenny's family, especially her father, always considered me unworthy and not what he wished for his daughter. This year, things changed a bit. When they found out we were back together, I think they either resigned themselves or perhaps they knew we were ready to cut ties if necessary. The only thing they asked of us was to have a religious wedding ceremony before living together. Jenny and I discussed it, and frankly, for over 10 years, they've tried to separate us. If that's the price to pay, we'll gladly do it. It was our intention anyway. So now, I'm searching for an original way to formally propose. Lisa. She didn't make things easy. When she asked me to help her become a better person, I initially wanted to accept, but I thought I might get stuck in that situation without an exit strategy. So I eventually decided to cut all contact with her. She wasn't happy about that. And when she learned that I was dating Jenny, apparently she couldn't handle the news well and ended up in a hospital. I don't know more about it because I didn't contact her or her family. In fact, that's why I chose to move permanently, because they said it was Jenny's and my fault. From what I've heard, her family decided to move somewhere else to give her a fresh start in a new environment. That's all I know. So this wasn't an exciting update, but honestly, I much prefer a quiet life to the drama of last summer.